Good morning. Thank you for attending the 2020 Behavioral Health Symposium. We are happy to host this event as a virtual conference because we care about your health and safety, but we also understand how important it is to provide relevant and robust continuing education to Louisiana healthcare professionals. For quality purposes, all participants will be muted during the presentation. If you would like to submit a question to the speaker, please use the Q&A feature in the virtual platform. This session is accredited for 1.25 hours for peer support specialists. It is approved for licensed professional counselors. Full participation is required to receive credit and will be monitored throughout the session. You will receive an email from Women's Foundations with detailed instructions on how to claim your credits and access your certificates. Additional information is available in the digital event booklet. Dr. Blunt does not have any financial disclosures. None of the members of the symposium's planning committee or any session moderators have any financial disclosures. This session is entitled Trauma, Reframing, and Reclaiming Our Lives. Our presenter is Dr. Jeremy Blunt, a capital city native of Louisiana and a graduate of the East Baton Rouge school system. He is the proud father of two daughters, Kaylee and Amari, and a mentor to numerous others. Dr. Blunt is the founder and chief executive officer of Stitches for Life Incorporated, a holistic counseling service, and co-founder of the Stitches Influencing Purpose Initiative, a nonprofit organization. He is a retired Army veteran and a graduate of the Hope Bible Institute, where he received a doctorate in biblical psychology. He is an advocate for continued education and service in the community. He has written and copyrighted stage plays and a book entitled Stitches, Because Some Wounds Need More Than a Band-Aid Cure. Dr. Blunt now serves as the lead adjunct professor at the Hope Bible Institute. Jeremy is a motivational speaker and a teacher who delivers a message of self-empowerment and change to audiences of all demographics. He has worked for the Louisiana National Guard Youth Challenge for over 16 years and considers it one of the most rewarding experiences of his life. Passion, energy, and a standard of excellence are what he feels he contributes to the program. In addition, Dr. Blunt voluntarily serves on the ministerial staff at Heavenly Hope Ministries in Baton Rouge and as vice president and one of the co-founders of the Gardeer Initiative, where he participates in planning and implementing programs in and around the Gardeer community. Dr. Blunt lives by his quote, "Everything you go through in life is intended to either prepare you for something else later on in life that you will face, or so you can help someone else who is to go through something similar." Dr. Jeremy Blunt.
Good morning, and thank you for that kind introduction. Again, my name is Dr. Jeremy Blunt. I am this morning going to be presenting on trauma, reframing, and reclaiming our lives. A little bit more on the background. As she mentioned, I do specialize in crisis prevention, as well as cognitive behavior therapy. I do empowerment trainings. I have over 20 years experience in management and teaching. So this morning I am excited. Trying to get my slides up. I'm excited about this morning and this opportunity. You probably want to take notes, because we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about a whole lot of things. I am not one of those monologue type speakers, and they told me I have to stand in one place. So I'm going to do my very best to do that. I have no financial disclosure or conflict of interest with the presented information and the material that is going to be used today. So here's kind of an agenda of what we're going to do and how we'll go about today. I use something I created called I2RS. We're going to identify the thought process, and we're going to talk about what trauma is. Because see, to identify is to establish the identity of something or someone. And then we'll go into the first R, which is to recognize. To recognize simply means to match something or someone with with one currently perceives to be a memory of some previous encounter with the same entity. In other words, if you cannot identify it, then you definitely can't recognize it. So as we're going to talk about trauma, we first got to start off with, hey, exactly what is trauma? And then we'll go into responding. That's what the second R is. We're going to talk about responding, and that's where we'll discuss reframing trauma, the things that we face. And then we'll go to the S, which is sustaining, how to make it last, how to maintain this after we do it. And then we'll close out. I'll go over a couple common questions and answers that people have, and then I'll open up the floor by all means. I want you to feel comfortable asking questions, giving feedback. We will answer, I'll do my best to answer those questions as we go along. So to get started, I want to go over this thing called the cognitive model. I specialize in cognitive behavior therapy. That means that everything starts with a thought. So a situation transpires. It triggers a thought. Now that thought triggers an emotion, and that emotion triggers a behavior. So everything starts with a thought. A lot of times we wake up and we figure, oh, a person is just acting like that. Well, everybody is acting the way that they're acting for a reason. And until you know the why behind their behavior, then you truly can't help them. You truly can't be effective in helping them get to it. So I want to start off with a little bit of an exercise, get everybody involved. So I want you to imagine for a moment, you know, we've been cooped up in the house. We have all of the COVID regulations that everybody's following and those things. But imagine going out to the grocery store. At this point, people are starting to venture out a little bit. I know I did the Walmart pickup for a little while too. But now it's time to start getting out and going around people. So let's say you got out, you went to the store, and the first thing that you run into is somebody that either they had a mask on or they didn't have one. We'll let you use your imagination. But then they do this. They start coughing. I'm talking about hacking. They out of the blue and you're just looking around like, what is going on? Here's my question for you. If you were around someone and that started, what is your first response? I want you to use the chat feature and I want you to give me a little feedback. What is your first thought process? What's your immediate instinct? As those are coming in, by all means, please share with me and let me know a couple of them. What is your first thought process? Are you really gonna look at them? What do? Are you gonna back up? It was kind of funny. While we're waiting on you to give that response, I went to go get something. I went to a little local restaurant and I walked in and the first person, I was there, everybody in there had a mask on, and then somebody else walked in without one on. And it was instinctively, everybody else that was in there took a step away in the opposite direction from where that person was. They didn't say anything to them. Everybody just instinctively took a step away, like they were parting the Red Sea. Do we have some comments?
Yes. Get away from me. Where's your mask? Glare with your eyes. Move away. Walk away. Get far away. Go home. Why are you coughing? I hope they are clearing their throat. That person has COVID. Avoid that person. Run. What is their problem? Why are they out here and walking away? Move around fast. Give them a look and run in the other direction. Move away really quick.
That is our thought process. All of those are normal. And, you know, when I first started talking about trauma, you know, a lot of times it was hard to relate trauma of certain kinds with different, you know, this person experienced this. Maybe you've never experienced a carjacking, or you've never experienced a plane being hijacked, or you've never experienced certain things. But guess what? This thing called COVID, can we just talk about it for a minute? This thing called COVID has affected everybody. So everybody has in some instinctive way been affected by this thing called COVID. That reaction, those reactions, those happen because of something called automatic thinking. Automatic thinking. Automatic thinking is a thinking that is non-conscious, unintentional, involuntary, or effortless. In other words, it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's what you do when you don't even think about reacting. I often laugh because one of my friends, they are around and something transpires, they head for the door. Even before COVID, we took a flight somewhere and they got on the flight, their mouth was covered, their head was covered. They were completely covered from head to toe. All you saw was a little slither of their eyes. Now that COVID has transpired, you go into the store, it look like everybody coming in there maybe trying to hold up the place. Because you got your mouth covered, your nose covered, you got your hat on, because these are the automatic thoughts that we have. That we've been pushed by the media to say, you know what? You don't know who has it. Anybody could have it. So you have to protect yourself. Now, to a large degree, don't get me wrong, this is actually a good thing, but it's important for you to understand what this automatic thought does and why you act the way that you act. Because people don't just wake up in the morning and decide they're going to be a quote unquote bad person or they're going to do negative things. Everyone that is a victimizer was a victim first. So we got to talk about that when we talk about trauma. I kind of got to get it in a frame for you. You know, that automatic thinking, I heard a presenter talk about this yesterday. Our normal response, fight, flight, or fright. Our fight is to respond immediately. Or we may freeze. We might get frozen into where we are because of what we're experiencing and what we're going through. So today, I really want to help you understand how this whole process works. Because in order to help somebody else, I want you to kind of use it on yourself. I want you to kind of do a little self-examination and a little self-actualization, if you will. So the cognitive process works like this. You have a situation that transpires. That situation creates a thought. Immediately, your mind starts thinking about everything that is connected to that. Now, let me break this down for you a little bit. The mind works like this. You are guided by one or two things, either your imagination or your memory. Imagination or your memory. Those two basic things. So here's what happens. When you were younger, your imagination ran wild. That's why when you were kids, you had imaginary friends and you put am I the only one that put a towel around their neck and would act like I could fly from room to room because I was Superman and I had all these superpowers? Our imagination, we could do anything we wanted to. And we were told that until trauma entered our lives. That was the reality part. Now, you know, that scientifically, they say around age 6 or 7, you reach what's called the age of reasoning. That's where you start determining for yourself what is right, what is wrong. But then you also have this place where when you experience certain things in your life, they cause you to re-examine and re-look at how you deal with everything else, how it affects you. And unfortunately, sometimes now it's not age 6 or 7, it's even younger than that. Because when you are exposed to certain things that create indentions in your mind, now when you go to do something, you're referencing one or two things, either your imagination or your memory. Now watch this. The older you get, the more memory you have and the less you use your imagination. And most people, I'm gonna say about me, somewhere around the age of 11, 10 or 11, is when, maybe even 12, our parents start telling us, look, all right now, I need you to stop using all of that imagination. You know, look, that you don't have imaginary friends. I need you to stop doing it. People gonna think something wrong with you. They started hampering and telling us not to use our imagination. Well, so we stopped using it. And now we start looking at everything as the reality of what it is. That kind of opened us up to more traumatic experiences in our life. And if you talk to some, it seems like their whole life is full from jumping from one negative experience or one traumatic experience to the next, to the next, to the next. That is how they live their life. Well, I'm here to tell you today that you still have a choice between your memory and your imagination. And it does require sometimes that you have to go back. You got to go back into the recess of your mind to the place before the traumatic event to establish what that's going to look like. So our thoughts and beliefs are about a situation or what makes us have certain type of feelings. Now, you know, some people wake up. You ever heard, you heard that phrase? They just in their feelings. It just seems like all they do are walking around and they're in their feelings because the thought between their thoughts and their feelings goes so fast, they don't even realize it. So they just walk around in their feelings all day long. Now, if I had to add to this, I would also say now, your emotions actually trigger what's called an attitude. An attitude, if you look it up, it is a settled upon way of thinking. So when you look at somebody and you ask, can you see their attitude? People will say, yeah. Actually, no, you can't. You see the behavior as a result of the attitude because the attitude is in the recess of your mind. It's your thoughts in your mind. You don't see their attitude. But here's what attitude does. Attitude only can last. It's like a fire. If you don't feed it, it can't last. Let me prove that to you. That can be proven because anybody that has an attitude, they got to trigger somebody else to have an attitude in order for them to have an attitude, in order to be able to keep it going. This is the reason why sometimes husbands and wives, they get into it because one triggers the other person's attitude and then they triggers theirs back because you need that in order to keep the fire going. And then there's mood. Mood is a way of thinking in which in order to stay in a mood, you got to be around other people that are in the same kind of mood. So that's why you'll call friends that won't talk you out of your situation. They'll try to help you stay in your situation. This is all important to understand because this is how we deal with trauma. We got to understand the way that our mind works. And then as a result of that, then we have the behavior. So you can't just judge a person by the behavior. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. So let's talk about it. Trauma. Trauma, by definition, is the damage to the mind. It's emotional response. It's deeply distressing or disturbing. It's something that has taken place in your life that make you wonder, is this normal? How do I understand this? How do I deal with this? Now, the hardest thing for people is this thing called change. We don't like it. The hardest thing for us to deal with and the hardest thing to swallow. I want you to think back to like March when COVID really first started coming out and they started telling people what you can't do and where you can't go and our attitude about it. We didn't like that. Don't tell me where I can't go. Don't tell me what I can't do. They told us we had to wear masks. I'm not wearing no mask. I'm not doing it. We didn't want to do it. Why do people hate change so much? Let me tell you. They hate change because of a couple different reasons. The first reason that they hate change is because of fear of the unknown. They fear what would happen. They fear why change has to take place, why things are the way that they are. They don't like that. In order to truly help somebody, you first got to realize where they're coming from. They fear of what would happen. They fear how people would take them. Then they also, people reject change because it's not normal for them. They like to be in their comfort zone. We like to be in our comfort zone. Isn't it funny how first we didn't want to go in the house. We didn't want to not go out. Now we don't want to go out. It was the complete opposite because once we got home, we got used to being home. That created a comfort zone for us. Now trying to get people to come out is like pulling teeth sometimes. They don't want to leave. So understand when you're dealing with trauma, something that has affected the way that you think and the way that you comprehend, one, you are jumping to try to find out what can I do to cope with this? What can I do to make this normal and okay for me? Well, let me tell you about people that have experienced trauma. People that have experienced trauma, I want you to look at the diagram here. They're 4 times more likely to become an alcoholic, 4 times more likely to have a sexually transmitted disease, and 4 times more likely to do drugs, to inject drugs. Why? Because they're trying to escape. They're trying to escape what is going on. Then they're 3 times more likely to be absent from work or be on antidepressant drugs or experience depression or have serious job problems. So when you look at somebody and they just don't want to come to work, or it seems like they just don't want to come to work, it just seems like they show up, but they still don't want to do anything. Folks, these are signs and symptoms that something is going on behind the curtain. That's going to be my phrase today, behind the curtain. You got to know what's going on behind the curtain to truly be able to help them. You know, they're 2.5 times more likely to smoke tobacco. So folks, I want you to look at these things and say to yourself, well, obviously there is a reason why a person is doing the things that they're doing. And in order to really be able to empathize with them, you kind of got to do a little self-actualization. You got to look at yourself and say, okay, why do I feel this way? You know, to change ourselves effectively, we must first have to change our perception. We have to change our perception on how we see it. Much as our perception is a product of our own motivation. Are we really trying to help people for them? Are we trying to help them to save face? Say that we did do something, but we're not really empathizing with them of where they are and what they're going through. What is driving you to help people? Now, I know we have a lot of professionals on here today, but that's the question that you have to not just ask yourself once, you have to ask yourself this periodically. What drives you? What's your motivation? Are you in it for namesake? Are you in it because of the acronyms and things before and after your name? Is that why you're in it? Are you in it to really help them? Can you actually feel where they're coming from? Do everything you can to understand what it's like to walk through it yourself. If you never knew, now everybody has an opportunity, because guess what? This thing called COVID has pushed mental health to the forefront. For many, many years, people have talked about it, but it's been, the quote unquote, the stigmatism of, oh no, you're dealing with somebody, that must mean something wrong with you. Guess what? COVID has given us an opportunity. It's given us the opportunity that now people understand it's okay to talk to somebody. It's okay that you're feeling some kind of way and to share with somebody the thoughts that are in your head. Now, I can't leave from this slide without talking about the biggest one that's on there. People that have experienced trauma are 15 times more likely to commit suicide. 15 times. And let me tell you something, the people that do these things, they're not doing it just because, hey, they wake up one day and decide they want to kill themselves, or they want to take themselves out, or they smoke. People they know what the effects that doing drugs and smoking and experiencing these different things has on them. But they do it because they're trying to escape. They're trying to escape the reality. So let me pause for a moment and break this down so you truly understand. When a person faces something and they don't understand how to deal with it, they go back in the crevices of their mind and try to find ways to deal with it. They'll talk to the people that they know. And when they can't help, they're still trying to deal with it. And because there's been such a big stigmatism about going to see a mental health professional, we haven't been the ones that they wanted to go to talk to. So they are self-medicating because all they're trying to do is get relief. People won't help. It's our job to be there when they come, not to turn them away, not to judge them. It's our job to be there for them. They are trying to deal with what is going on in their mind to make sense of it. So we have to be those that are willing to understand where they're coming from. And the easiest way to help understand is that we have to know enough about it, but we also got to use what we know about it to look at us and then to give them the help that they need. So let's talk about the causes and the types of trauma. First off, I want to talk about acute. Acute is a single incident. Just one thing that has transpired. It's maybe a one-time event that has taken place, a car accident, somebody being attacked violently, something unexpected that might have happened in childhood. That's an acute. It's a one-time event that affects you thereafter for whoever knows how long. But then the second one is chronic. Chronic is something that is repeated and is prolonged. It's such as, living in a crime-ridden neighborhood, battling a life-threatening illness, or experiencing a traumatic event that occurs repeatedly, such as bullying, domestic violence, or childhood neglect. It's ongoing and relentless. Now, let me tell you, right now, I might go so far as to say, you can put COVID in this category because it wasn't a single incident that has transpired. This has affected us for months, and it looks like it's going to affect us for some time to come. So we have to be prepared of how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to cope? If you are a parent, you have to cope with it. If you are a child, your children have to cope with it. You have to be able to talk to them about, a lot of times we talk about the symptoms, but we don't talk about our feelings. And I'm going to talk more about that in a few moments. But to understand also, then there is complex. Complex are what's commonly overlooked. It's things such as traumatic event that has multiple. This is where you jump from one thing to the next. It's like a humiliating or disappointing experience that you jump from one thing to the next to the next. The sudden death of a family member, someone close to you. Look, we haven't even begun to look at and realize the effect of all those family members and friends that have not survived COVID, that we couldn't even be there with them during their last moments. The effect of those that are still having to live with this, to say goodbye when you really couldn't say bye, and how to handle that, how to deal with that. These are the type of questions that we got to look at. We have to start paying attention to and preparing for, because it's pressure that you still have to deal with. It's like a Coke can. If you were to take a Coke can and shake it up and you sit it down, it's still under pressure. It's still under pressure. And at some given point, that pressure got to go somewhere. If I were to take a Coke can and put it there and I press on the top and I put enough weight on it, you can't really say where it's going to jump out at or where it's going to escape. But guess what? It's going to find some way to get out of that can. This is important because that's what trauma is. If you don't deal with trauma, you prolong and avoid dealing with it, guess what? It's going to come out somewhere. So moving along, I want to talk about some of the symptoms of trauma. These are some of the common things, and you'll see them. This will be made available to you. We have the emotional or psychological side of it, and then we have the physical side of it. We need to check on one another. We need to check on our friends. Hey, are you sleeping okay? Are you sleeping through the night? We may be able to see the physical stuff, but see some of the mental ones. We're in a society where we're accustomed to not talk to each other, not tell each other stuff. There's a lot of things that go on social media. Pay attention to your friends when they post things. When they say something that if it looks weird, that means you need to pick up the phone and call them. Hey, is everything going okay? Hey, look, we might not be able to do some of the stuff we used to do, virtually connect with them. Hey, once a week, let's virtually connect just to make sure everything is okay. We were taught when we were little, there were basically 5 basic emotions that we all had. We had joy, we had disappointment, we had anger. We had 5 basic emotions that we had. Well, as you got older, nobody taught you how to truly express the additional emotions that you had. So shame is not one of your basic emotions. So when you have experienced shame or you experience guilt, if you don't know how to express it or you don't know how to show it, guess what? It may come out as anger. So understand where a person comes from. That was why it was so important for me to make sure you understand these symptoms of trauma. It's just us of how people react to things that have transpired in their life. Yes, your responses are normal reactions to abnormal events. That's what they need to understand. Your response are normal reactions to abnormal events. Guess what? We have abnormal events that take place in our lives. Look, on top of COVID, guess what? People are still getting sick from other stuff. People are still experiencing car accidents and life-changing events that change and dramatically change the way that they view life and how they do things. This morning, I just want you to know, check the lenses that you look through when you view these people, when you deal with them, when you encounter them. Check the lenses that you use. Sometimes, it's like putting on glasses. Your glasses are what helps you perceive the view that you have. Every now and then, my oldest daughter wears glasses, and I used to tease her because I could tell when she had fingerprints and all of that on her glasses, and I was like, the world can't be clear to you right now. It can't be clear to you because all of that is on your glasses. Look, when you experience trauma of your own, you got to make sure you take care of yourself. That was mentioned several times yesterday, how important it is to take care of self. So when you look at this list, ask yourself, what and how many of these things apply to you? How many of these things are you dealing with? Are you feeling like hopeless? I know you're in the business of helping other people, but guess what? You got to make sure you're feeding you too. You got to make sure you're putting something in your system. When you first wake up in the morning, I make a point, the first 20 minutes when you wake up, you don't pick up your phone. You use that time to feed yourself, put things into your system. When you first wake up, the first 20 to 30 minutes, your brain is working at its highest wavelength. That is the reason why it's so important that what you input at that point dictates how the rest of your day is going to be. If you put the wrong things in, then the rest of your day, just think about it. Everything that people put on like Facebook and Instagram is them putting out information. So if they're putting out their frustration, what they're going through and what they're dealing with, in many cases, because they're trying to get help, but they don't know how to ask for help. Just gonna throw that out there. So when you get your phone and the first thing you do if you wake up in the morning is you're looking at everybody else's negative responses and negative actions, then you're wondering why you can't be positive the rest of the day. You're wondering why you can't help people the rest of the day. We're in the business of helping people. We gotta help starts at home first. You gotta help you. Make sure that you are together. Make sure you're straight. Make sure you have the mind so that when you go out, guess what? Everybody else, I use this one often in my illustrations. People need to reap the benefits of your overflow, not what's in your cup. Imagine that you had a cup, like a coffee cup, and you got to pour into your cup. And if you keep pouring into that cup, it overflows until the saucer underneath it. Yeah, I know some old school folks in here. They know what that's like. Okay, people reap the benefits. They're supposed to get what comes out of your saucer, not what comes out of your cup. As mental health professionals, our job is to give people out of our saucer, not out of our cup. And that's been a big misconfusion over time. Here's the reason why. Because some people are saying, well, what you mean? I need to give them out of my cup. No, if you give them out of your cup, what happens when your cup runs dry? What happens when you don't have nothing left? This is why people experience burnout, because they've given out of their cup and they haven't been putting anything into them. You have to continually pour into you so you'll have extra. Other people benefit from the extra. And being in mental health means I got my mental state and I'm constantly pouring into mine, and I gotta have it in order to give it to you. If I don't, that's why, they say readers are leaders. That's why it's so important for you to constantly be pouring into you. Because if you're dealing with these things, if you're constantly seeing these things in yourself, I want you to know, hey, you need to check, what am I pouring into myself? Now, next I want to go into, now we've identified it. We know how to recognize trauma. Now, let's transition to responding. Now, there's a difference between responding and reacting. Reacting is acting as a result of things that happen. Common things that we react to is the fear of a traumatic event that's happening, sadness caused by things that remind us of a person, a place, a thing from in the past, flashbacks from a moment, mood swings. That is common reactions that we have: difficulty sleeping, feeling depressed, changes in appetite or eating, lack of patience, anger. I can go on and on of things that we've experienced, things that we've had that we just react to. What my opening illustration about being in the store and reacting to people not having a mask on and coughing. That's our reaction. But today, I want to tell you the importance of responding. The definition, it says reacting by taking a particular course of action. To act by doing what is needed, appropriate, or right in a particular situation. That's the definition of it. So let me break this down for you, help you better understand. If you were in an emergency situation and you had to call 911, they called them emergency responders. They don't call them emergency reactors. Why? Let me break down what the difference is. Responders means I'm coming with a plan. Now, if you've ever had to call 911 and the ambulance or the fire truck or whoever shows up, police officers show up, isn't it funny how when they show up, it's almost as if they are taking their time. They get out, they make sure they got their bag, and it's like they move in slow motion. If you're the one that had the emergency and you call and you go and meet them out by the road, make sure they know where to come, it's almost as if they're moving in slow motion to you. You're like, look, this is what's going on. But they're taking their time and they come over and then they go through these steps, step by step by step. They look at the situation, what is going on. They look at what is the most critical situation at that moment. Let's address that. And then we work our way down the list. They work their way down the list to take care of the situation. Why? Because they're not reacting, they're coming with a plan. They bring a plan to the situation, not just bring action to the plan. So that's why it's important. In understanding trauma, we have to have a plan for it. One of my coined phrases in my practice is, we have a plan for that. If we don't have one, guess what? That means we need to create a plan for that. This person we're in the process right now of building a plan to help people who are going to be dealing with the effects of COVID, because it's going to be happening. If you should be doing that right now in your profession, doing something to prepare for that. While emotional trauma is a normal response to a disturbing event, it becomes PTSD, y'all know what that is, when your nervous system gets stuck and you remain psychologically shocked, unable to make sense of what happened in the process. Yes, PTSD is real. If you don't believe it, just wait a couple months. Wait till things open up a little bit more. You'll see that people are not as engaging as they used to be. Their patients are not as more as it used to be. It's a whole lot shorter now. We have to prepare for that. You don't prepare when it happened. You got to prepare before. Now, guess what? COVID might have caught us unexpectedly, but as mental health professionals, we cannot let the fact that people are experiencing things and they're going to need help, that can't catch us unexpectedly. That we can't just stumble up on that. We need to be creating a plan of doing that now. So in reframing trauma, understand that your greatest strength, vulnerability, is not a sign of weakness. It can be your greatest strength. People don't ask for help because they don't want to feel vulnerable. We got to change the way we think. If you use the same thinking, you're going to get the same results. You got to be willing to do some things differently. I want you to remember, there is no right or wrong way to deal or to feel about trauma. There's no right or wrong way. Look, however they respond to it is how they respond. Don't judge them because they're responding the way that they are. People talk about symptoms, but they don't talk about their feelings. You got to encourage them to talk about, how did it make them feel? Ask yourself, how did it make you feel? As professionals, we should be talking to one another, because let me tell you something, every therapist needs a therapist. Come on. Everyone who deals with people that deal with trauma and things, we need it for ourselves. One, because sometimes we have to make sure we're not carrying their load on us. Come on. And we have to be able to constantly encourage them. Traumatic events are going to happen at one time or another. It's going to happen. We're going to face those things. Don't ignore your feelings. It will only slow your recovery. This is how we respond. We have to make sure they understand these things. Look, don't ignore that. It's going to happen. You're going to feel some kind of way. Look, this is normal for you. But look, I need you to not ignore it. I need you to not act like it didn't happen. Some of us are still trying to act like, when you go out and you see people and they don't wear masks, they're in denial. They're acting like it didn't happen, like what's going on in the world did not transpire. Look, that's only going to slow down the process. So instead of judging them, pull them to the side. Hey, now, what's your thought process? Keep your 6 feet, I'm just saying. But ask them, what's your thought process? Why do you feel you don't need to wear a mask? Why do you feel you don't have to be socially distant? Folks having these huge parties and these huge gatherings, ignoring what all the scientists and all of the professionals are saying. Our job is to be also more preventative about all of this. Avoid obsessively reliving the traumatic event. Look, overthinking is abuse of the thought process. Let me break that down. Abuse is abnormal use by definition. So the overuse of anything becomes abuse. This includes your thoughts. Okay, I'm trying to help somebody. Okay. The overuse of your thinking becomes abuse. This is nothing more than what we call anxiety. Come on. That means you are overthinking about something. If you think about it too much, then now you become all consumed with it. It's okay. Yeah, there is a healthy amount of worry that we have. But when it begins to consume you to where you can't function, you can't go through day to day, that's when you start having problems. That's when it starts to affect everything else. So these are the tools that you use to help them understand, look, this is how we're going to respond to it. Yes, we're not going to keep reliving it. Every time we talk, we're not going to keep talking about the same thing. We're going to take the lessons from it. I like to say it this way. When you experience something, it's either going to be a pothole or a stepping stone for you. You got to make the choice. A pothole is something you're going to constantly fall into. You're going to or a stepping stone is what you use to step over and to move to another level. Because when you experience something, you take one or two things from it. You either take bitterness or you take lessons. That's it. You either take bitterness or lessons. How do you know the difference? The next time you experience something similar, how do you respond to it? How do you react to it? Because based off of how you react to it tells you what you learned from the last one. This is the reason why some people keep dating the same type of person. This is the reason why some people, statistically, those that are in domestically violent relationships, they go from one to another to another to another because they didn't learn the lessons from the last ones. So while they're running away from something, they end up running directly into what they claim they were running away from. So reestablish routines. Get your routine together. What do you do from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to bed? Get a routine together. That's important to help them understand that. Put major life decisions on hold. Don't make major decisions right now because you're not thinking straight. You got to wait, hold out, make those decisions once I always use the 48-hour rule. Look, if somebody does not want you, they ask you a question and they won't give you time to think about it, my immediate response is no. I'm sorry, if you won't give me time to think about it, to analyze, to walk through everything, my answer to you is going to be no. Why? Because major life decisions deserve the time that you need to spend to make sure it's the best decision for you. And then tell them when you're ready to talk, you can talk to someone. Just make yourself available. Sometimes we try to force people to talk about what they've dealt with, about what they face. No, you can't force them to talk. When you're ready, look, whenever you're ready, I'll be here. Like, I'm going to be consistent about it. Be consistent about who you are. When you're ready, I'll be here. So next, I want to give you 5 tips real quick about recovery to help you with the sustainment process. Here's the first one. Develop an intentional plan. As I said earlier, focus on the first 20 minutes, then you wake up every day. Reevaluate your circle of influence. Reevaluate the people that influence you. You're either influencing them or they're influencing you. A lot of times it's going on at the same time. But if you have, look, everything needs to have a balance. I listen to all kinds of music. Well, almost all kinds. But I listen to a lot of different types of music. But I also know certain music will put me in a certain headspace. So I got to make sure I don't listen to too much of that kind of music, because then I'll end up exhibiting the behavior of the music that I listen to. That's the power of influence. People are the same way. So you got to evaluate that. And then I like the way Michelle Obama said it. She said, we're not getting back on track, but creating a whole new track. Stop telling people we're trying to get you back to where you were before. Oh, we're just gonna get you to a place where you don't have to deal with this anymore. That's a temporary solution. Look, when you experience it, now you're going to be on the other side of it. You're never going to go back to the way you were before. We're going to use what you experienced to build, develop, grow, and mature you. So now you're better than you were before. That's the difference between it. Tip number 2, get moving. Folks, at least 30 minutes every day, or on most days, you need to get out and exercise. It's important. Why? Because you got to be here to help others. You got to be at 100%, or you got to be worth something to be able to give somebody else worth. And then mindful elements. Instead of focusing on your thoughts, encourage them, focus on your body and how it feels. Go outside and just take in the sights and the sounds. Close your eyes and take in everything that you hear. Use your other senses. It's mindful elements. These are things that help people to recover from the things that they've experienced. Look, tell them the world ain't over. COVID came, but guess what? This ain't the end. Like this ain't it. We're going to live through this, and we're going to live on the other side of it. And then tip number 3, don't isolate. Look, you don't have to talk about the trauma, just talk. Sometimes they just need somebody to talk to them about something. I don't have to, don't tell them, look, you got to talk about this or you got to discuss this. Take your time. What do you want to, let's talk about something else, unrelated. Because sometimes people just need, like I said, they do those things to avoid dealing with an issue. Let me break this down real quick. When they talk about avoiding, it's like the video game era. Okay, it's still going on a little bit now, but it's not as much as it was maybe 10 years ago. Why did people like video games so much? They liked it because it took them to an alternate reality. They got consumed with being like they were that person or they were that thing doing that. So they would be there for hours. Well, guess what? When you look at somebody who they drink or they've done drugs, it's because those things put them in an alternate reality. And they're trying to think of, okay, while in this, I don't have to think about my problems while I'm over there. This is the reason why when the high goes down, they go back and do it all over again. And they do it more and more because I want to exist in the place where I don't have those problems. Those that smoke marijuana, I've talked to hundreds of thousands at this point, and it just makes me I feel so chill. I don't have the worries that I have. Our job is to teach people healthy alternatives, to tell them that they're not alone in what they're dealing with, and tell them it's okay to ask for support, to ask for help, participate in school activities or social activities, and then reconnect them with friends. Sometimes it means you need to get some new friends. Join a support group, other people who are dealing with the things that you're dealing with. And then I can say this one simply, volunteer. These are things to help them recover. And then, I already talked about making new friends. Self-regulate your nervous system. What does that mean? Mindful exercises. your sensory input. Stay grounded and allow yourself to feel what you feel when you feel it. Tell them it's okay. And then the last point is take care of your health. I've talked about this the entire time. Make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. You want to tell them the same thing. Avoid the excess of alcohol and drugs. Eat a well-balanced meal and then reduce stress. So I'm going to go ahead and at this point, do we have any questions that we may have? Okay, well, I'm going to go over a couple. I'm going to close out with 5 questions that people often ask about trauma. The first one is, does trauma ever go away? Simple answer. Although you may start to feel better after some days or some times, feelings don't go away. We need to give them alternatives so that, hey, when this show up, hey, we can do this. You have this as an option. Another question that is often asked is, what symptoms are not normal for people to be experiencing after a traumatic experience? Let me tell you something. Thoughts of suicide are not normal. Or otherwise, trying to harm yourself, that's not normal. Cutting yourself, that's not normal. You need to get them some help. Thoughts of harming someone else, those things are not normal. The inability to breathe or chest pains, those are not normal. Those are signs that something else is going on. You need to get them help, okay? Another question that is often asked, when should you seek therapy for trauma? When you're having trouble functioning on a day-to-day basis, whether or not that's at work, if it's suffering where you're constantly thinking about it, it's interfering with your day-to-day life, when you're unable to be close or to satisfy relationships, when you see that things are different, when those that are close to you come to you and tell you there is a problem, don't ignore them. That means something is really going on. When you feel emotionally numb, the things that you used to care about, you don't. When you feel like the only thing you like to do is drink all of a sudden, or when you have to have a pill to wake up and a pill to go to sleep, it's time to talk to somebody. It's time to see a professional. And then what can you expect in the recovery from a traumatic event? People will get better over time. That's what you just have to tell them sometimes. Occurrences such as birthdays, holidays, and anniversaries sometimes make it a little bit harder. It slows down the recovery process. We're coming up into the holiday season. And to many, this is going to be the first holiday without some folks that they have spent their entire lives with. We have to be ready for that. We have to be prepared for that. How can you help loved ones dealing with trauma? Be patient and understanding. Offer practical support. Stop telling them book stuff that don't make no sense. Break it down to them in a way that they can understand and they can take. Don't pressure your loved ones to talk when they're not ready to talk. Just say, I'm available when you're ready. Help them to relax. And don't take trauma symptoms personally. You don't get nothing else out of the day. I want you to get 2 things. 1, take care of self. And 2, stop taking the people that you serve, the symptoms of what they're dealing with personally, because they're just trying to understand what it is that we deal with. So how can we support someone who has experienced trauma? We can be all of these things. We can be there for them. Let them know that they're not the only one that has ever experienced it and that they will get through it. So with that, I will open up to any questions that anyone has. And I think we are right at or about time.
We don't have any questions. We have a lot of comments saying that it was an awesome presentation, great information.
Thank you very much. Well, thank y'all for tuning in. This is my contact information. If ever I could be of any assistance to you, I will be glad to be able to do so.